Welcome, future healthcare heroes. Whether you're a medical, nursing, or paramedical student stepping into the field, or you're just gearing up for those tough entrance exams, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're doing a foundational deep dive into anatomy. We're going to lay the absolute groundwork, what anatomy actually is, its different branches, and why mastering this subject is a totally non-negotiable first step for your career. So let's get into it.
Now, we're actually not kicking things off in a sterile modern hospital. We're going way back, thousands of years back, to ancient Greece. Medical immunology almost always tells a fascinating story, and this one reveals exactly how our earliest ancestors first tried to understand the human machine. The root of everything we're discussing today comes from the Greek word anatomia.
And anatomy literally translates to, well, to cut open or dissect. Historically, the only way to figure out how the human body worked was to physically open it up and look inside. And honestly, that literal translation perfectly explains why medical and nursing colleges still rely so heavily on cadavers to teach this subject today. You really have to see the physical reality, the actual layers of tissues and organs to truly comprehend the body. You quite literally have to cut open to understand.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this session. First, we'll cover what anatomy is. Second, we'll look at the key branches. Third, we'll break down structure versus function. And finally, we'll talk about why studying this subject is so absolutely vital.
Let's jump right into part one. What exactly is anatomy?
Formally speaking, anatomy is the specific branch of medical science dedicated to studying the physical structure of the human body. And guys, the sheer scope of this is massive. It's not just memorizing a dry list of bones. We are talking about major organs like the liver and lungs, the skeletal framework of your bones, the muscles that drive every movement, and that vast, insanely complex network of veins and blood vessels. But here's the real kicker. It studies their internal relationships. Simply put, this subject reveals exactly how the body is built from the ground up and how every single one of these internal parts physically connects and relates to the ones right next to it.
Moving right along to Section 2, the key branches of anatomy.
Because the human body is just so incredibly complex, we really have to break this study down into 5 main branches to make sense of it all. First up, we have gross anatomy. This deals with the big stuff, structures you can see with the naked eye without needing a microscope, like a whole heart or a femur bone. Second is microscopic anatomy, which, as you probably guessed, requires a microscope to study those tiny foundational building blocks like cells and tissues. Third is developmental anatomy, tracing how the body's structures actually develop and change before birth. Fourth, we have surface anatomy. This focuses on the external forms and markings of the body, which is essential for knowing exactly where to listen with a stethoscope or where to feel for a pulse. And finally, clinical anatomy, which takes all of this structural knowledge and applies it directly to diagnosing and treating diseases in a real-world clinical setting.
All right, part 3, structure versus function.
I'll be honest, firmly separating anatomy from physiology is arguably the biggest conceptual hurdle for beginners. But here's the easiest way to think about it. Anatomy tells you what is physically there. Physiology tells you what it dynamically does. For example, anatomy gives us the structural blueprint that the human heart has 4 chambers, right? Physiology is the functional action of how those chambers coordinate to pump blood. Basically, anatomy is the map, and physiology is the traffic moving on the roads. You absolutely need to know both, but understanding the difference between the two is a real game changer.
Which brings us to our fourth and final section, why study this subject at all? Let's shift gears from academic theory to clinical reality for a second. As future healthcare professionals, you're going to be making decisions that literally impact people's lives. Mastering this knowledge is essential for a few incredibly important reasons. First, you fundamentally have to understand the human body to work with it. Makes sense, right? Second, knowing normal anatomy is the only way to spot abnormal anatomy, and that's what allows you to make accurate disease diagnoses. Third, it is the absolute backbone of improving surgery and nursing care. I mean, you can't perform an operation or provide advanced wound care if you don't know the specific layers of tissue you're working with. And finally, having a rock-solid foundation in anatomy makes learning really complex subjects like physiology and pathology so much easier later on.
Okay, let's pull all of this together into a quick, high-yield review so you are completely ready for those exams. Just remember, anatomy is strictly the study of structure. Physiology is the study of function. That root word, anatomia, fundamentally means to cut open. And the study is divided into 5 main types: gross, microscopic, developmental, surface, and clinical. Lock these core truths in, and you are going to be miles ahead on your upcoming tests.
So, that brings us to our final thought for this session. We've established that anatomy is the ultimate structural map of the human body. Every bone, every vessel, every single organ is a destination just waiting to be understood. The groundwork is laid, the definitions are crystal clear, and the branches are set. So the only question left for you is, are you ready to explore it